And Mary's out, Megan's out, and Melissa, all the three M's. Boy, we have a lot of M's. Wow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't what about me?
You're the exception, Monica. So I think we're good.
Oh, just
Okay. So has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of March 8th? Any comments? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 8th?
so moved.
Monica? Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, Bianca, thank you. Okay, everybody in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved for March 8th, 2024. Next on the agenda is the FFY 2024 annual work plan brief update by John Marcy. And you want to go ahead?
Yeah, and thank you. And I just want to touch on some of the key projects, the status really of some of the key projects, and some things that are moving forward into the next year. Anything I miss, Marcy will certainly fill in, and some of this will actually be a precursor to our conversation about FY25. So just going in order of the goal areas under self-determination, our first goal, and I hope you all have a copy of the various work plans. They were included with the materials I sent. If you don't have it in front of you, I'm sure it's not a make or break, but I'm going to refer to some of the objectives and activities. So under self-determination, objective 1, activity 1, that's our self-advocacy grant. That has been proceeding since last summer. The ARC of Arizona and the ARC of Tempe are the grantees. The ARC of Arizona actually is the grantee, and ARC of Tempe is a sub-grantee. We are in the process of renewing their renewal request right now. We anticipate that one will be moving forward into a second year of funding. The project has been going extraordinarily well. We're very, very pleased with the outcomes so far. Objective 2, activity 1, our supported decision-making grant, that also is under review for renewal. We did have a number of questions related to that renewal request, and those are being clarified right now by the ARC of Arizona and the ARC of the US. That one we anticipate also is going to move forward into a second year. Also very pleased with the results we've seen from that. Really, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but light years ahead of the work that was done in the prior under the prior grantee. Much better leadership, much better outreach, much more activity. Really, really pleased with what's happening there. Objective 2, activity 2, A and B, our conference sponsorship program. The conference sponsorships for the period of July 1, 23 to June 30, 2024. That is those conference activities are finalizing. The grantees are in the process of submitting their reports if their conference has already taken place, or will be submitting their reports if the conference hasn't taken place yet. We did not have a large number, as we've talked about before. We did not have a large number of sponsorships this year, and that kind of segues into the issue for FY25, which is that we had an even smaller number for the coming year that we deemed, or that our reviewers deemed acceptable for funding. So we're doing the final review of the requests for next year. But as I said, it's a very small number. It's not even going to come close to using the amount of money we budgeted for that. And one of the things we're going to discuss in our conversation about FY25 is whether we continue that program into the following year, given the diminishing returns that we've seen from it over the last couple of years. Finally, on self-determination, objective 2, activity 6, that's the legal options manual update. That contract is in place. It was just finalized within the last couple of weeks, I think. We got the final signatures from the University of Arizona, so the Sonora and USAID can lead that project. And the formerly Arizona Center for Disability Law, now Disability Rights Arizona, is working with the Sonoran Center to update that document. It will be done by the end of this calendar year. That is part of the contract. We're hoping, we have our fingers crossed that it'll be done sooner than that, because as we've discussed any number of times, that is one of our most requested resources and something that we would like to have available to the folks who contact us, and something we'd like to have available at conferences and other exhibit opportunities. So we're very pleased that that contract is in place, and we'll have the final product no later than December 31st. Moving on to meaningful careers, our second goal area, Objective 1, Activity 2, the Center for the Future of Arizona Communities at the Center, or Raising Expectations project. The Meaningful Careers Committee is reviewing the report that we received and making plans for how to disseminate that report, how to utilize the findings, and how to make the most of the investment we made in that project. We may have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about that later. Mike may have some additional information, but for now, that's kind of a highlight regarding status. Objective 1, Activity 3, we have made a commitment to release 2 policy briefs, and 2 policy briefs have been completed. One related to dual enrollment for students with IDD when they're in high school, dual enrollment with community college, and one on college-based transition services. These are projects that were contracted, or part of our contract with Carla Krivickas. She has completed those. We have distributed those. We've made those public, and they are excellent documents. We're going to now try to make more out of them and basically elicit more support legislatively and more support from organizations like the Department of Education to take further action to promote those programs. Objective 1, Activity 5, the Institute for Community Inclusion Vocational Rehabilitation Report. Similar to the Center for Future of Arizona report, this one is still being reviewed and discussed by the Meaningful Careers Committee. They are making plans again for how to distribute and make the most of that report and get the best results from the findings. Also working with VR on what was found in that report and utilizing those findings to improve systems for people with IDD. Last on Meaningful Careers, Objective 3, Activity 3, the new webinar series. As you probably know, we've had very successful webinar series over the last several years. Mike and team have put together another outstanding series for this year. The first webinar was last week. It was on May 8th. And the next one is coming up related to supported decision-making, as a matter of fact, on June 12th. And then the dates beyond that, I don't have in my head right now, but it's occurring on a monthly basis through September. Mike, when we talk further, he may have more details on that and what some plans are for next year. Moving on to the inclusion goal, Objective 1, Activity 3, the Data Hub. We are still working with Dr. Alex Kurtz at ASU. He's working with DES to incorporate DES data about DDD members in our Data Hub. There have been, not surprisingly, I suppose, there have been a few more delays, but we do have that data share agreement in place with DES, and we're doing our very best to make sure that that data gets incorporated. There is a request from Dr. Kurtz to extend that contract through January 31st of next year. We were hesitant to do that because we didn't have approval from ACL regarding no-cost extensions on our federal funding for this year. Nicely enough, this morning we got notification that no-cost extensions will be granted to state councils. So we will work with Alex to do whatever we need to do on that contract. The reason for the extension request was so that he could incorporate the 2024 American Community Survey data, which is survey done by the U.S. Census Bureau. He wanted to make sure he could get that into the latest iteration of the Data Hub. And now if we give him until December, which is when the data are released, if we give him until January, he can use the data that are released in December and incorporate that into the next iteration. So we'll be meeting with him in June to take the next steps on that. But that continues to operate, and we're building more into it. Objective 3, Activity 1B, the community survey. I'm working with Sarah. We will be releasing a community survey this year. We've talked about this a lot and for various reasons have not been able to move forward with it. But now that Sarah's on board, we are having conversations about it. That survey will be done this fiscal year. The result of it, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, the result of it will be built into our 25, or an analysis of the results will be built into our 25 plan. But the survey itself will be done by the end of September. Objective 3, Activity 1C, our contract with the Arizona Technology Access Program or Institute for Human Development at NAU, which runs ASTAP. We are working with them to finalize the contract. This has been a couple of years in the making. This is a project that was proposed by Erica prior to her departure. It was built into our work plan. We took forever working with IHD to come up with a project that actually made sense, but we think we have one now, which would be utilization of assistive technology for students in the SIPC program, or Supporting Inclusive Practices in Colleges program. That is something the council has been funding for several years now. That program is coming to a close, but we think there's an opportunity for us to test how assistive technology would benefit those students who've been enrolled in the program or who are enrolling in coming years. So we're working on that contract, and we're coming close to a conclusion on that. That contract will run July 1st of this year through June 30th of next year. Last item on inclusion, Objective 3, Activity 1D, our Parenting and Pregnancy Supports Program. We have had contracts in place with 3 state universities for the last year, and we are in renewal or in review now for the renewal requests on those contracts. We do expect that all 3 of them are going to be renewed, and we're going to move forward with a second year of those projects. I guess the real headline for this program, as far as I'm concerned, is that although the 3 projects are being undertaken separately, all 3 universities have been in communication with one another, and they've been collaborating on how to utilize their data collectively. They're taking 3 different approaches, but all of the information is complementary and will all build into a stronger system of support for parents who have IDD or individuals with IDD who are interested in becoming parents. And they will be presenting a collective track at the IHD conference that takes place in early June of this year. Jason, in fact, will be facilitating a panel which focuses on this issue and includes representatives from all 3 of the projects that are being undertaken. And there will be multiple breakout sessions presented by the different partners. So really pleased to see what's happening there and looking forward to a second year. Moving on to Goal 4, safety. Objective 1, Activity 1A, our internet safety solicitation. We are in the process now of finalizing that scope of work and almost ready to issue the solicitation. It will go out in June. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different one. We are reviewing this afternoon. There was a review committee this afternoon for that internet safety solicitation. So the projects that have been submitted, I believe we have 10 to review. We have $100,000 committed to that, to potentially committed to that project. Multiple awards could be made. The committee will review this afternoon. We expect that the council will vote on that on June 21st, and that a contract would run from July 1st of this year through June 30th of next year. Marcy, what did I screw up on that?
Only,
Anything else?
we did receive 10, but 8 were going to be evaluated. There were 2 that were
Okay.
really, did not include all the elements required, so I set those aside. So 8 will be
Okay.
reviewed this afternoon. So that's it. That's minor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Objective 1, Activity 1B, ACES-DB, Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. They continue a contract to do trainings through September 30th of this year. They've done a number of really excellent trainings related to sexual abuse, sexual violence against people with IDD, how to protect individuals, how to respond to incidents. They've been working with the Arc of Arizona. They've been working with a number of other organizations that are part of the sexual abuse response and domestic abuse response community, and very pleased to see what's been happening there. That contract, as I said, ends on September 30th of this year. Also under safety, Objective 1, Activity 1C. This is the solicitation that has not yet been issued. The Arc of Arizona, or the Arc of the U.S., actually for several years had a contract to oversee what became known as the Sexual Violence and Disability Network, the Arizona Sexual Violence and Disability Network. We are reconfiguring the scope of work on that, and we'll be issuing a solicitation in June related to, I guess, its successor leadership role related to the sexual violence network, but also to other issues around sexual violence. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we talk about the FY25 plan, but we anticipate, as I said, that the solicitation will go out in June and a vote will be taken by the council on funding that project in September. And then finally, Objective 2, Activity A1C, the Behavioral Health and Crisis Response Survey. That survey has been done. I know it's been a long time in the making. We started last fall, finally got the survey done early this year, and got the results from the survey company, Noble Predictive Insights. The Behavioral Health and Crisis Response Core Group is analyzing still those results and determining the best way to move forward. But we will be finalizing a dissemination plan on those results in the very near future. Last goal area, system access and navigation. Objective 1, Activity 2, the how-to guide for individuals seeking information on resources in Arizona, people moving to the state, or people who need information on disability-related resources. Sarah is now working with the System Access and Navigation Committee and Amber Owens, an intern from the University of Arizona who spearheaded this project. They are moving forward with finalizing that how-to guide and then determining how best to incorporate it into the council's website. So I don't want to belabor that. Actually, I think a couple of you are on the meeting or the System Access Committee, so you're probably familiar with where that stands, but just know that that continues to move forward. And I think we're getting pretty close to finalizing that. Objective 1, Activities 3 and 4 are aging and disability projects. As you might remember, the Regional Center for Border Health in Yuma conducted a survey using some CDC or NIH funds we got as part of COVID funding. They issued a report on needs of individuals with IDD relative to the public health system and how it's serving them as they age. We have the report back from the regional center. We have some really great documentation, some really great data to use, and we're now incorporating that into the Bridging Disability and Aging Community of Practice that we recently joined, which is a national program funded by ACL and operated by the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities. So that is moving forward. I think we have a good head start and are feeling very optimistic about what we can accomplish with that information. Last item, very last item, Objective 3 are what's known as targeted disparity. This is a mandate from ACL. It has to be part of our work plan. Ours is focused on Navajo youth seeking employment. The Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disabilities at the University of Arizona is managing our targeted disparity as part of the funding that we provide to them for the Native Center on Disabilities, or what's now known as the Circle of Indigenous Empowerment. So we're in our third year, I believe, of funding for the Sonoran Center to operate that program. That will carry forward for 2 more years. It's all part of the 5-year work plan, and the funding is, barring something completely unforeseen, the funding is committed for 2 more years, and that program is continuing. We're very pleased with it. It's grown enormously. They've got new leadership. A woman named Agnes Atakai, who has worked for the University of Arizona for a long time and is well known in Native circles, is a Navajo Nation member herself. She is the new manager of the program. I think things are in very solid hands, and we'll have further updates, as time goes on. So I've talked a lot, and I apologize for that, but those are really some highlights. There's actually a whole lot more going on than just that, but those are some of the key things that we've been focusing on, and we're seeing some real successes from those. As I mentioned, many of those are going to carry forward into the coming year. So I'll answer any questions if you have any regarding those programs. Otherwise, Kathy, I think we're ready to start talking about 25.
Okay, Bianca, Monica, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. I just have
Oh,
one.
actually,
Go ahead.
go right ahead.
I
No,
just have one.
please.
Your turn, John.
I was just going to say that if I omitted anything or misspoke, I would open it up to the members of the staff to correct me on anything or to add what might have been left out.
You were good. We went over thing in advance. I think you're good.
Okay.
Okay. So one question I had is that when I look at the council website, it has reports for 23 and 24. And there's only a few. So I was wonder, what's the criteria for those reports to be put on the website and some of these other reports? Are they all put on the website? That's my question.
Kathy, yeah. So Sarah and I have had several conversations because she's in the midst of trying to figure out the best way to even reform the entire website. And she has stated to me that it's not a best practice to post the reports on the website. It's better to do a summary of the project and what's been awarded. And then when new awards are made, to do a video announcement of them. As well as, if applicable, a press release to a certain county or a certain district or something like that, if that's even something to consider. So, I don't know what the analytics are as far as how many people are viewing this. They are pretty long, they are pretty detailed. And if council members, or we could put a link on there that says if someone wants more information on reports, they could contact me and I could send them the reports individually. But to compile, on average, we have about a dozen grants. There are probably around 1 or 2 research grants that obviously the final reports are generated at the end. So I think we need to figure out what makes sense on hosting these that take up a lot of room and the viewability of them. Or do we just say contact so-and-so if someone wants more information? So I'm open to other, options. Sarah has shared with me her thoughts about what she's seen on other websites, what she's seen on other councils. I think we might be the only ones that post quarterly reports. So I'll let Sarah add her thoughts on this and what can be done.
Or at least establish the criteria as to what is something that will be posted,
That's a great idea, and we can whip that up really quickly. I can even share my screen briefly with you all to give you an idea of one model of what we could do. I was even looking at local foundations who are also grant makers, although not in, particularly the disability space, for best ideas on how to do this. And, we want people to know what we're up to, know what type of projects we fund, and we want to make it short and easy for them to get that glimpse while still being transparent. So having those little summaries with projects from the last couple of years, how much we funded, who the organization was, some impact that we saw. And then with that email, hey, would you like to have some full reports on any of these projects? That's just our duty as a public agency. And I think that would cover our transparency, full transparency goal without overwhelm. I feel like it would almost be people would be less likely to read through those long ones. Although, I haven't looked into the actual click count, and I can do that if you'd like. But here is one of the biggest councils way of doing this. So this is the Texas Council, and I'm going to share my screen really quick. And can you all see that?
It's coming. Yeah.
So this is their funded projects page, and they have just the past, the ones that have started in 2023 and 2022 here at this piece. It looks like it's a rubric that they just upload, so you can see there's 254 entries. So if you click on this hyperlinked project name, what I like is it tells you where it's at, if it's in progress, the topics it covers there on the left. If you click through, Each project does have a dedicated page. Now, this would take a lot of work. We know Texas has a full web team, but we could easily take this paragraph the way they do and put it on like a rolling list of 2023 projects. It doesn't get into, it really just lists the goals and the summary of it. And then there's even contact info, which I like in case people have questions about, more details and they want to talk to the funders. So, or the grantees. That's one option. So we have talked at length about this. If you've come across another council or foundation who does it in a way you like and a style you like, send it my way. I'm open.
Okay, actually, so I guess for me, and I don't know what the other work plan members think, it's just that when you're giving the overview and you say they turned in the reports, and I think, oh, that's great. Kind of wondered what the report said. I agree that there's too many reports to put out on the website, but maybe the staff can think of a policy or procedure of what will go up on the website and what is just used in-house to continue with figuring out what should be on the work plan, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
So you'd just like to see some consistency with, okay, if we have a project and if it's in progress or we just completed it, what are the 4 or 5 things we're going to post regularly about it to the public on the site?
Yeah, something that, right, what did we learn that helped us move to the next step in this? That's my thing, is do we always build upon what we learn, from a couple of years ago? Okay, it told us that our kids need to have help transitioning to college. So what are those things we learned that help them transition? Okay, what can we do next to help them transition? Like getting the assistive technology helps them. So that's another stepping stone. So I always think in terms of how can we learn from what we did to stepping stone to the next level of achieving transition for our kids, to the world of work.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all. Go ahead, guys. Sorry. That's my only comment, which was a long one. Sorry.
No, very helpful. Any other questions, Bianca, Monica, anything else you'd like us to clarify?
No questions, but I do think it's a great idea to kind of have those reports, at least, I know that this is a lot of work. And like you said, Sarah, other councils have these whole web teams. And so, it's different expectations, that one can set to Texas versus, to our state. So I think it would be great to kind of, if we are going to, kind of house and maintain these reports on a regular basis, I think it'd be great to start at least with this year, maybe with last year, and then kind of start slowly building a repository of reports, archived reports that can be, as the years go on, reports can be moved year by year into this archive to kind of make it a little bit, I'm not sure if that would make it easier, just to kind of like maintain or kind of just build upon. And that can be kind of tagged with maybe the different areas of focus. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that this can be kind of executed. So I guess it would just depend on, on capacity, but then also, just our goals as what we want this to look like. But I think this is a great start, and I really like the ideas.
Absolutely. We can make that happen.
All right.
I agree.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will begin working on that, or we'll continue working on that, and have more to share with you next time we meet. Moving on to the fiscal year 2025 annual work plan. I guess I'm going to start just by making a general statement which will repeat what I said earlier. A number of things that we are planning for 2025 are continuations of things that we are doing in 2024, or next steps on those things. There are some new items proposed, and we'll talk about those. I'm going to turn it over to Marcy to kind of do the heavy lifting on this and to walk us through the program for next year and talk about, again, what's going to stay the same or continue and what is going to be introduced as new. Marcy, can you take it away? Oh, and just a clarification, as far as the agenda goes, I listed 4 different things: objectives, changes, proposed financial commitments, and grants and contract timelines. I didn't intend for us to kind of go in that order. All of those pieces are going to be discussed as part of the overview of the plan. Just those are the things we want to make sure we touch on as we talk about these things. So, Marcy, it's all yours.
Sure. Does it help if the 25 work plan is up for you guys? Do you need that up or do you have it in front of you? Do we need to do a share screen? Kathy?
I think it's helpful. I have it up on my screen. But
John, can you throw it up?
Pardon?
Yeah, let me.
John's going to put it up.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
And he could be the master controller. And then Lonnie has a fiscal part of it, and she's created a document too. So I think I will try to get through my part really quick, and then she will inform the discussion around the budget part of it. If you're okay with that, Lonnie. She's on mute. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with it. Sorry. Takes me a little while.
No worries. I mean, it's really hard because you kind of need like a big screen to see both of them here. But here's what's going on. So the feds require, obviously, the 25 work plan to be submitted to ACL this August. So we have a couple of deadlines that we're working internally, and one of them is with the work plan committee, because anything that comes out of the work plan committee as far as changes or recommended changes, and that includes removing any items, adding new projects, staff needs to work out the language and then incorporate the output, the outcomes, and the performance measures. And what we have to do is bring that back to the full council, which is going to be next month already. So even though the drafts, these will still be in draft when the full council sees these, we hope to have at least a majority of the language that you guys are recommending finalized. And knowing that this is due in August, it will give staff some time to continue to tweak anything as need be. Michael's going to have his committee meetings probably ongoing throughout the summer. So is Sarah. So there may be something around those 2 particular goals. The other thing too, that's due at the same time is 2026. We're not talking about 26, but what we do and what most councils do is they copy 2025 as 2026. So if we know of a program is going to continue through the end of this 5-year plan, which is the 2026 plan, then we will just make sure that activity with its statements and how it's worded moves into the 2026 plan, adjusting the dates and perhaps any of the award amounts or et cetera. So the feds will allow another time next year for 2026 to be updated accordingly. So they have to stagger it that way. It's confusing for a lot of folks. Believe me, I still get confused, and I have to go back and see what we submitted and what didn't carry over. But we work on that as best as we can and inform you guys. All right. So in terms of self-advocacy, this is a mandate. It will continue indefinitely until the governor decides to get rid of the council, or the government decides not to fund the councils anymore. So we just want to make sure that we are meeting the outputs and the outcomes, which is regard training for self-advocates, informing leadership development, peer-to-peer support mentoring, as well as a coalition. And as John stated earlier, the grant with the ARC of Arizona and the sub-award to the ARC of Tempe, they are doing gangbuster work. I do not really compliment grantees that much, but this group of folks have gone beyond my expectations, and I'm very pleased, and I'm excited to see the next couple of years of how this grant works out. So this will be a continuation going forward until we know differently from the Fed. Moving on to objective 2, we know that we're going to continue support decision making, number 1, but it may be it may be determined that it will be a step down funding if need be, or incorporated different tasks for them to do to ensure sustainability. So right now we're reviewing their second year renewal application. I've asked them to clarify a number of things. I could tell you they've done almost at least 13 or 14 different trainings, and almost 1,400 people have attended. So they have gone statewide. The one thing I do want to bring down here, the next moving on is, I'm not going to talk about in-staff projects too much because those are really not my area of too much knowledge. There is some in-staff work around the second objective here. Conference sponsorship, John alluded to this, where you see 2B crossed out. And what's going on is when these first 5 grants, the grants are right now are in place, Bloom 365, Care for the Caregivers, IHD, brain injury, those contracts will end this coming June. Earlier this year, we released a new solicitation for $50,000. We received 10 applications, and the evaluation committee is recommending 3 for the council in June to consider. So I said to John, we really need to take this up to the committee and to the council to see if they want to continue another round of solicitations for conference sponsorship, considering every year it's been less and less. They're not very good proposals. The scope of work is incredibly easy for people to put together, yet folks do not really comply with the scope of work requirements. And it's not on the evaluation committee's fault for being very hard. It's you have to answer the questions and even the budgets. So it's really a discussion for you guys to consider and how you want to inform staff, whether you think it's still worthwhile to do it or whether you think we give it a breather for the next year or two, and then you guys can always add it back.
Well, for me, I was wondering if you worked in the past conference sponsorships, where you get anything back as a return for giving them funding. And if you weren't, then it isn't just about them not filling out the application correctly. It is past sponsorships. Have those gone very well? And they were worthwhile. And so are we hitting just a bump in the road with people just not filling out the sponsorships applications very well?
Well, it's so with the conference sponsorship requirements for evaluation is if to do an evaluation survey, they have to create information. It's informational for the target population they are working with. To do it in person, hybrid, or webinar, it could be, the format is pretty open to them. They could do one training. They could do a whole day symposium. They could do multiple trainings on a particular topic around the state or however they choose. So it's really pretty formatted, open for them. In terms of evaluation, then what we receive back is we want to see materials submitted to me by the end of the year, so I know what sort of materials were handed out. The survey information is to gauge knowledge increase, how this information will be used. Did they find the information and speakers informative? And it's that basic, and in addition to all the demographic data that has to be captured. Not all do a pre-survey. It's usually a post-survey, and to gather that information. So what's coming back, is I don't have the results because they're still going on. But in the past, most parents or most participants that attend conferences, if you're like any one of us attend a conference, you probably have said, yes, I increased my knowledge on this topic and I feel I could use the information, but that's about as minimum as it's going to get. There's not going to be a follow-up 3 months later because that's outside the contract period, and we don't ask for folks to do that for a small grant that's $5,000. So it's limited in what information you're going to get. It's going to be automatic. How did you feel about this event? How are you going to use the information? Did you feel you increased your knowledge or learned something?
Okay.
Yeah, Kathy, I would say in terms of the in terms of the information we're getting back on the outcome of our investment, it is really minimal. It is very difficult to know. I mean, we're basically providing these funds on speculation that the conferences will be of value, but most of the conference grantees have not done a good job of gathering feedback from their attendees. Most of them have not done a very good job of being able to tell us what impact the conference had. And I don't mean that necessarily as a criticism for them, because it's very hard to do. And as Marcy said, often doing a post-conference follow-up 90 days later or whatever is outside the scope of the grant funding period. So it's hard for us to know. I don't want to assume that the conferences haven't been of value, but unless we can get information back, and it's information, by the way, that we need to report to ACL, I have to question whether right now, anyway, it's the best use of our funds.
Okay. Monica, Bianca, any comments?
I kind of agree, because I mean, if they're not doing it correctly, or if there's something they need to, and if not a lot of people use it. I mean, do a lot of people use it?
Use the information, you mean, Monica?
That yeah, and also actually have for the conferences, like sponsor, because he said that it was a small amount.
Well,
I guess
they're not giving us
Yeah.
much back for what we give.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we're just seeing fewer and fewer really high quality applications.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
they
this
just
year
want you
we
to give them the
saw,
money. Yeah.
yeah, we saw applications this year that were so thoroughly outside the scope of work that I'm pretty sure Marcy read about 2 sentences and then just set them aside. They were so clearly not in line with what we were funding. It is sometimes as though people don't read the application materials, and fortunately that's the minority. But even those that have some relation to disabilities or that are somewhat in line with the scope of work, they often just don't present. They don't present a good rationale for us to fund them.
Okay.
I agree too. I mean, if it sounds like this is a repeated pattern of, less return on, these applications and these, conference proposals and, the work, then it might be a good idea to kind of do it either biannually or just, on a less frequent basis, to have this grant opportunity for conferences. I'm curious though, what the root cause of this is, and maybe it is that applicants just don't have the capacity to actually, make a conference, because I know it's a lot of work, just setting it up, getting all of the speakers, preparing everything, ensuring, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And so it is, I mean, I can see it as a quite a large undertaking. So yeah, I think, reducing the opportunities that for granting this, for conferences, I think that might be it sounds like that's the direction we should take this in.
Yeah, I agree at this time. At first I thought, well, I put on conferences and I hesitate to cut funding because it's so hard to find funding for conferences. But on the other hand, I understand that if you're not getting quality applications, you're not going to get anything in the end, even if you gave them money or sponsored a conference. So I say I agree with Monica and Bianca that maybe we do biannual or reconsider it next year, Oh, Sarah?
I just had a thought, and maybe we used to do this, I don't remember. We might have more success is if we take the guesswork out of it for folks, where they're trying to match the goal of their conference with the goal of our grant, and we just have a bucket of funding they can have for conferences and trainings for the public. And we just choose one thing it can pay for. One thing that comes to mind is ASL and CART interpretation. So we're fulfilling our mandate to help public events be more accessible. They're learning about that process. We could use it as a vehicle to kind of educate people who've never done that before, never provided that accessibility before to their public events. And that way they know what it's about. It might simplify the application. And then they get excited about being able to provide that. So even if we don't fund them for like their conference next time, it's going to come to their mind like, oh, we're just going to bake this into our events because this was such a good thing. Just an idea.
Yeah,
I
I think
like
that's
that
a good
idea, Sarah.
suggestion. Yeah.
One
So
question oh, sorry, go ahead, Marcy.
go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, with that, I'm curious though, I think that's a fabulous idea for funding and providing that resource. My question though is, how do we, or can we facilitate directing people, part of that accessibility and making them aware that this is possible? How do we kind of direct them or guide them towards vendors that have this, service available for them? Because it is, we can, I see that as one piece of, providing that funding for getting that service available, but then how will people know where they can go to get that service, with the funds that are granted to them?
I think we make a list, don't you think?
Oh, no, that's a Google list. It'd be like for any other vendor for an event. And that's part of them. I think that's part of it. They learn how to do that. And if they have questions, we could, help them. But if we just provide a list, that list is going to go outdated like in a month. That stuff changes all of the time. And so I would say that's on them. That's on them for the, but again, we would like, if they truly were like, I don't know what to do, of course, we would be like, well, have you thought about XYZ and
So let me jump in because I think there's a misunderstanding. They're all required to provide accommodations, interpretation, translation services. In fact, if we don't see it in their budget, we have them go back and add it in. And that's pretty standard in all of our applications of what's an allowable cost. And especially with conference sponsorships, because people have the view that they can use our funding for knickknacks and food and water or things that are not allowable. We give them a list of what is allowable cost, not only include personnel, so they need staffing for someone to help coordinate, Bianca, like you stated, it takes a lot of work. You need a devoted staff person for a certain amount of time or hours to devote to coordinating this, to supplies, printing materials, purchasing things that they need to host it. It could cover a venue. It could help cover speakers on a contractual basis. And interpretation and translation costs are contracted expense item that is allowable. And so we make sure that we list that as a requirement for applicants to consider. And this is not just for conference sponsorship. This goes for all of our grants because you are reaching a population that needs that. And if accommodation is not a top of mind thing, like plain language materials, it always goes back to a clarification. You need to add this in, or how are you paying for this? Because we don't want to be contacted, or at least what I see every now and then, or what happened previously is, oh, we didn't cover this cost. We need to shift our budget now because we didn't think about it. Well, people are thinking about it because they know they're going to get requests for accommodations, and we just make it a requirement of every scope of work. And so therefore you do see it in the budget. So, it's not something that you could just pick out and award 10 organizations for just $3,000. I personally would not recommend that. That's a method of going forward. But again, that's just my view.
Marcy, is that because it'd be too much work for a small amount of money for just one?
I don't even understand what the purpose of saying just come and ask for $3,000 for interpretation. For what? What are we reporting back to the feds? What are we reporting back? The number, the amount of money that went out? That's an output. That's an output.
Sorry.
You're not educating.
Yeah. Whatever whatever we fund, it still has to fall in line with our organizational goals and objectives. And so, I mean, we can talk about this more internally, but for the purposes of time today, since it's very limited, Kathy, my recommendation would be that we excise this topic from our work plan for fiscal year 25. We have further conversations about how we want to move forward internally and with the committee, and that we revisit the topics for our fiscal year 26 plan. If you and the committee members are comfortable with that.
Okay. Monica?
Yes, yes,
Your
I'm very
thoughts?
comfortable with that.
Okay. Bianca?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of make one last comment. I totally get where Sarah's coming from, and I can see this kind of service as, and it might be a bit of a stretch, but, kind of increasing accessibility so that the public can, get educated on various topics, even if they're not disability related. I still think that's I think that's a great way of still providing, education, even if it's not directly towards disability. But, just my opinion on that. As
Well,
I can see the potential for that, but if it's not under the scope directly under education, then and if it's we can't squeeze it in for it to be accommodating to whatever the feds are looking for, then I understand. But I think the idea and the spirit of that idea is great.
I marked it down, Bianca, to think about how to write an activity to support increasing accessibility. We're gonna figure out the language around that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, let me move through quickly. The next one you'll see crossed out is SEEP. That is because that will end on 9/30. That is the funding to the what was the Arizona Center for Disability Law, which is now Disability Rights Arizona. So that third-year contract will come to an end and will not carry over. The last couple things are just some inside projects that Sarah and John and things that are going to continue on, such as the Speakers Bureau, educating self-advocates on legislation and public speaking, legal options manual John mentioned. We have to carry it over into 2025 for the first quarter because they will be finalizing that manual and be submitting in final invoicing. So we will be reporting it to the feds in 2024 and in 2025 PPR. And that will include my notes on the first goal. Meaningful careers. I do want to notate, Michael met with me to update his work plan. And I'm just going to jump to the parts that are crossed out because everything is carrying over, except for objective 2, activity 1, which is collaboration with the Arizona APSE chapter. Activity 2, convening a roundtable, expanding Arizona pathways to post-secondary education. And then there was number 5, partner with Arizona APSE to develop policy that helps to lead to successful employment outcomes and future legislation. Everything else carries over, but Michael may want to have, sorry to put you on the spot, Mike, but if you have anything to say, or if you want to wait to have conversations with Melissa and her committee.
Yeah, the APSE project, I have approached the APSE chapter and I was able to secure funding for a project in the amount of $2,000. And I approached the Sonoran USAID to see if they would be able to provide the remaining amount, which is a project to survey employment specialists. So it's working with the Colorado Office of Employment First. And so I approached that office and asked if they would be able to work with us on this project at a reduced amount. So I'm sorry I'm being very high level, but it's a project that I'm really interested in doing, but I'm not going to be able to do it if I don't have adequate funding to do it.
And so are you saying now that priority 1 and 2 that were crossed off, you want to keep them, or you're going to add something later on if you get additional funding for that?
I'm going to add something later on if I am able to secure additional funding.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify something. The Sonoran USAID is able to provide assistance, but it would be technical assistance. they don't have discretionary funding ability. So this project requires the use of Qualtrics, which we do not have, but the Sonoran USA does have Qualtrics, and Heather Dietrich, who is the person that I interact with, said that they would be able to provide that assistance to us.
Okay, so they're in kind, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
And also thank you, Michael. And then I also want to mention under objective 1, number 7, Michael wants to add in the expansion or explore the expansion of Project Search, which is a national best practice program for either an urban or rural community in Arizona. So we just put a quick comment in there that is going to be flushed out to be more of a clear activity that probably will require funding from the council. So that's a new activity that will go into 2025, and then we'll write up the other language regarding the outcomes and output statements and identify a dollar amount. So Michael, you have an upcoming meeting with Melissa with employment?
Well, I have meetings with the Sonoran USAID, and so I'm waiting to find out what the status is of these potential sites. So as soon as I get that information, then I will call a Meaningful Careers Committee meeting and we'll discuss it. But this is something that Melissa is very interested in doing. Project Search is a good organization, a good program. It has 71% of the interns who graduate from Project Search have obtained competitive integrated employment. Right now, there are 6 Project Search sites. As Marcy said, I would like to provide funding to expand that to maybe include 1 or 2 in fiscal year 25.
Okay.
And Kathy, the funding that the council would most likely provide would be for the licensing fee. There's an $18,000 licensing fee for a new Project Search site, and that provides technical assistance from Project Search National. It makes sure that there's fidelity to the program, and it's really about technical assistance and obtaining the materials, making sure that everything is in alignment with the overall goals of Project Search.
Who pays for the current 6 Project Search sites now?
They're all paid by different organizations.
Okay, all right. So are you thinking that we'll get it started, then hopefully we'll find somebody else to sustain the cost? To
Yes.
sustain it? Okay,
Yes.
okay. Monica, Bianca, any questions about that?
No,
No questions.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good one. I like that. Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Michael. And I just want to thank Michael. He's really on top of his work plan. When we meet, he always comes very prepared with where he's at. He's always excited to show this activity's completed, which I really appreciate because it's hard to keep track of the other ones. And so, Michael, I just want to thank you for, let you know how much I appreciate you being on top of your work plan and everything you do.
Thank
So,
you, Marcy.
you know how I like reports. I'm going to drive you crazy. At some point, it would be kind of neat to figure out how we could highlight some of our kids, shouldn't call them kids, our young adults on Project Search, to show the success of the different sites. That would be fun. So,
yeah.
Nothing to add to your plate, Mike,
But I like that, Kathy, and I think it would be good to highlight. I believe in sharing success stories. That really makes an impact, and it encourages other people to say, hey, if they can do it, I can do it.
well,
And so success stories are real. People pay attention to them, and I am a firm believer in sharing that information. And praising
put
the
out a
individual,
new, go ahead, sorry.
and just acknowledging the individual for achieving those accomplishments. I think it's so important.
Well, the other thing is you don't always hear about Project Search. Like HRSA put out a new grant request for proposals on innovative ideas to transition youth to adult. And I didn't hear anybody, I think we have new innovative ideas probably coming forward from these proposals, but let's complement the ones we have in place, you know, if they're successful. Let's make people know about them so that we don't always think we have to reinvent the wheel when we got something that works well, you know. So that's my
Agreed.
sorry,
Thank
guys. Go ahead. Sorry, Marcy, go.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to move to inclusion. I think this first activity probably speaks to our previous conversation around accessibility for organizations. The first one, where we have to strengthen at least 3 activities that expand agency and organizational best practices around, here we go, language translation, linguistic accessibility, use of plain language to read versions. We're going to keep this in. We have to probably remove the second paragraph, unless John knows how we are. This was Erica, specifically. This was a carryover from Erica when she was in our office. The information to be translated and to deny for the Navajo Nation. We have not had any luck in probably working on that particular activity, but it is something that I left in 25 to either we figure out or either we remove it. But overall, this activity needs to remain in because it is something that's really important that we continue to support our other agencies, organizations around this. So maybe without having to put it back in the conference sponsorship, we can tweak this particular activity to support accessibility for organizations. The next ones that are pretty standard. We get a lot of constituent calls, which is activity 2. We track more than a dozen constituent calls that come in for assistance. So that's really all around of ensuring that the folks who call in. Sarah does a tremendous job in speaking to families and individuals. So does Jason and Michael. I'm probably the least one familiar to take any sort of constituent calls unless it revolves a grant. And then, so really appreciate, we have a tracking sheet that is used to track all those calls. What was the information provided, follow-up that needs to be done, who they were transferred to, if it was another agency such as Access or DDD. So we compile that in our PPR. We're keeping that because that's really important to know what, you know, our website for people to call is listed. I believe it comes up on top if someone Googles us for like assistance. So it's all good. We take those calls, doesn't matter. And then the last one we spoke about earlier, which is the Community Inclusion Index, carry over or at least into the first quarter of 2025. And then we are going to speak with Alex about any way to how to get this project sustained and continued on for it, because the data is important to have. Any questions on that first objective before moving on to objective 2?
Marcy or Bianca? I mean, Monica or Bianca?
No, this is
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to objective 2. We're carrying over the work that Jason's doing around transportation. He's been meeting with the COGS, the county governments, with MAG in Northern Arizona. So he keeps us abreast of his work on that information. When a policy brief is complete, there should be some work around proposing a project for funding, which we hope to kick off sometime in 2025. So that's why it's going to be a grant if you see 1A. We don't know what that's going to look like yet or what the scope of work is, but we will tighten that language up as soon as we know more information on how to proceed. And that's really the bulk of objective 2 was around Jason's work. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out why there is a delay in this work. I guess I'm sort of speaking for Jason, but if Jason has anything to add, please do so. Jason was working very closely with the Maricopa Association of Governments and the Council on Government, Northern Arizona Council of Governments, I guess, related to a grant they were seeking to fund some work on transportation in rural areas. Initially, the grant was denied, and then for some reason that I don't fully understand, a couple of weeks ago, MAG got notification that the grant actually was going to be funded. So it looked as though that project might not really have legs, and now it looks as though it really does have legs. So it will be moving forward, and in fact, it may take a little bit longer than we initially anticipated, but it appears to be very healthy, and looks like we're going to get some good results out of it. So, Jason, did you have anything to add to that?
Say that actually we had our first meeting yesterday, and they're gonna do a monthly meeting to do follow-ups. But the real thing is because Humana is the one that's funding the grant. What they did was they just shift funders, and it's it's 125 for 1 year, and then if, depending on the success, we get another 125 from Humana if we do it right. So basically it has to do with access to healthcare and transportation. It's about putting medical access hubs in areas so they don't have to travel for like 2 hours to go to Flagstaff or wherever. They can travel to the local library. It's like 5 minutes. So it's it involves a lot of things. And
Nice.
It's kind of exciting actually. So it's a good thing. Sorry, I'm a little sick today, so sorry if I don't talk too much. But yeah.
Well, I'm excited. Good.
Okay, and then I'm just going to quickly just highlight one thing on objective 3. I had crossed out where it says 1B, conduct a survey. There's 3 points to that. That's the community survey that John had mentioned that's going to be completed by 9:30. And then next year was to next year what we need to do. I'm going to rewrite this to say that the council will analyze the survey responses and develop policy recommendations for 2025, and that will probably run into 2026 as well, so it could carry over to the end of the 5-year plan. So, this survey was not completed last year during fiscal year 23. It now needs to be completed in this next last quarter so that we can report that we've completed it, because we told the feds we did not, and we were going to do it this year. So there needs to be done. John knows that. And then what we also told the feds that in 2025 we were going to implement any sort of changes from the survey, from the analysis that the public is telling us that they want us to do. So we're going to add that piece back to the 2025 work plan. And that was a cross out on my behalf until I went back and started looking at my previous notes, what we told the Fed. So we're going to add those 2 pieces back in. So I just want to point that out to you. That will be back into the 2025 statements that will follow through. And then John already talked about the parenting grants, that we're reviewing those, and the new solicitation or project with NAU for ASTAP. That will be a proposal the council will look at for funding in next month. And then we could add any new activities under under the objectives from you guys. Okay, any questions on that before I move on to safety?
Questions?
Monica?
No.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, safety, and I'm just gonna try to wrap up in the next 2 minutes here, so I can give Lonnie some time. Safety, the internet safety, we had talked about proposals are going to be reviewed today. I hope to have that finalized for the council to make it to review any of the ones forthcoming that they are recommending. So excited to meet with this group this afternoon. The 8 proposals under review. John also mentioned under 1C, under the first objective, I am working on the scope of work. And what I'm doing with that one is a couple of things. I am taking finally the report that Dr. Lynn Tomasa finalized. This was a grant she received maybe 3 years ago to do research on sexual assault, abuse, and trauma with individuals with IDD and their families, but she was doing intensive interviews with each one of them, and it just took a very long time for her to do all the analysis and the collection and how she had to formulate her report. It is a remarkable report. I read it. It is have a box of Kleenex. And she did such a nice job presenting it and how she analyzed information, how she presented it, and the recommendations. There are tons of recommendations. So very thoughtful in how she did this. And even though it took such a long time, John and I were very pleased with it. And we are going to have Lynn present on her report at a different council meeting. But I'm going to take her recommendations and kind of pick through which ones possibly can be addressed in this new scope of work. So that's why I'm holding off on it until I've had a little bit more time in the next week to try to work this through and put a scope of work together around the recommendations that a grantee can do. And then the other part that I'm going to take to also add in the scope of work, if you scroll down all the way to number 6, this was an activity, again, that carried over many years, where it says engage law enforcement agencies, service providers in rural areas of the state, trauma-informed resources, provide education training where necessary. This was something we just could not get our hands around about how to do, who could speak around this. And I'm going to see if I could probably tie it into this particular scope of work so that we address, these 2 activities with 1 or 2 grantees, hopefully, that will apply for it and be able to carry it out in the next, in this upcoming 26 year. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And then let me see here. There's some stuff that's crossed out that is going to be updated in number 5. So there's some work that we have to update here that we're still meeting with and going through with staff. Most of this is staff led. Any questions on objective 1?
No, you know what? I just have to compliment you. Those are stepping stones. I love what you're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. Yeah, thank you. Okay, objective 2, we are going to just continue to work on trying to have conversations around trauma-informed training and crisis behavioral training from the report. So John's going to try to set up some meetings so that we can figure out how we can move forward on objective 2, 1A and 1B. And that will be it. So we're hoping we could add new activities around this objective if necessary. And then I really don't have much to say about the systems access. We covered it all. It's exciting to see the how-to guide put together. Excited to share that once it's released. And then the work around aging. And then the targeted disparity, the contract with the Sonoran you said. Did I miss anything, John?
I don't see anything you missed. I think I may have missed objective 2 under safety in the document, so I apologize for that. I don't see it there.
Okay.
But no, I think you've covered everything.
Okay. And Lonnie, I'll pass it on to Lonnie. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. Give me a second to pull up my screen for you. Okay, hopefully you guys are able to see the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council budget recommendation.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And just let me know if you guys have questions because I can't see anyone right now. I just see the Excel screen. And this is very much going to mirror what Marcy just went over and kind of how everything is broken out by goal, objective, activity, who's doing the work, and the amount that's budgeted. Right now, we're looking at the federal fiscal year 24 funding. Now, please remember that the federal fiscal year 24 funding is really going to go towards the work being done in fiscal year 25. So this first year, 24, is when we receive the funds and obligate it, and 25 is when the work is going to be done. And then the third year, it's for paying the bills. So for these purposes, federal fiscal year 24 funds are going to be applied for the most part to fiscal year 25 work. So we're going to continue on with the self-advocacy work that the ARC is doing. We're very pleased with it. Supported decision-making as well, and both of those are at level funding. The training and conference sponsorship, we had that out for $50,000, and it looks like what we're going to end up awarding is only $22,500, so less than half of what we anticipated. The legal options manual update, we were also budgeting around 30,000 there, and it came in well under at 21,200. We have money allotted for in-house projects. Same here for meaningful careers. Some of the stuff that Mike had mentioned isn't currently budgeted, but again, depending on the time frame of when those things will start, we may be able to use the funding that we get for 25 for those. With inclusion, we're probably going to carry on and extend out the project for the data hub. We got permission just this morning, as John had said, to do a no-cost extension. And so I think he wants to continue this work through the end of December. And we're working on sustainability efforts moving forward for this project. Nothing currently for transportation for us for funding, but doesn't mean that that can't change or be put in for 2025 funds. We're continuing on and anticipate funding the 3 pregnancy projects that are being done by each of the 3 universities at level funding. And then also the new higher education AT project that they worked through with NAU. These are proposals that you'll probably see at the next full council. It'll go through the grants, executive, and full council approval process. For safety, as mentioned before, we've got $100,000 and the first evaluation will happen this afternoon. This is kind of an unknown. We don't know if we will be able to fully spend the full 100,000 or what will happen based on the evaluation. So again, this is just kind of a placeholder, as well as these 3 amounts, because these have not gone out yet. And so in-house, we're still figuring this out. These amounts may change and increase, but yeah, so right now it's just where things stand. We still have to close out the state fiscal year, which ends June 30th. And so anything that doesn't get spent needs to be spent in some other way. So just know that to some extent, these are moving targets, and we will adjust as necessary to make it make sense and to spend the funding that we have. Also, the Native Circle, I believe the name has changed now. There's been a few different iterations and name changes, but that's a 5-year project. We're continuing at level funding for now. We may consider step down funding in the future, but for the next year, we are anticipating level funding. And in total, you're seeing that we have kind of a surplus of funds in both years at around, let's just say $20,000 right now. So again, that's something that we could increase some of these solicitations that have not gone out yet, or look at moving in some other way. But we'll figure out a way to deal with the surplus that's currently showing. And again, things are always changing, and we don't know what we'll end up awarding and what people will spend as far as the awards that are given. But this is kind of the state of affairs as we're speaking today. Hopefully that helps. Any questions on this sheet?
So how much surplus did you think might be there?
Right now, around 20,000.
Okay.
But I don't know if you noticed in the work plan, I believe it's this one, the recommendations based off of Lynn Tomasa's research was at 75,000, and right now I'm only showing 50. So there's a good likelihood that we will bump that up to 75,000.
Okay.
So yeah, we already kind of have a plan for this current surplus.
I appreciate the wheel that you have here for fiscal year 22 and 23. I think it visually, it shows you, wow, in 22, we were really focusing more on meaningful careers, and then that's reduced. It's kind of interesting just to see that. So that I like those wheels very well.
I agree.
Kathy, you know, if you look at 25's work plan for Michael's Meaningful Careers, there were no grants. He had a lot of grants in the previous fiscal years. So
Oh, that's why. Okay.
yeah, so that's why. It's not that he's not doing anything. Most of it is in-house projects or a contract with Carla Krivakis to do some policy work, but there's no specific contract anymore because we had the research with Voc Rehab Research, ASU to do that particular research on that they compiled. And so those were heavy grants, you know, in the previous years, and then there were other projects. So it fluxes, and that's what you see is our funding in each of these goals, you know, will ebb and flow. So so just keep in mind there is work going on. This is just related to a contract.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. In some ways, and I'm not trying to give you more work, it would be interesting to do a wheel based on your activities. I don't know if you could do that. It's easy to do it with funding, but based on all your activities, what your wheel would look like, you know, but just a comment. Just ignore it.
I don't know how you base it on an activity, what that number would be to be.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I could base it on number of activities, but then there's sub activities.
Yeah. Yeah,
project.
I don't know how you do it, but I think, you know, it's just one of those things that's kind of interesting. But yeah, just ignore me on this one.
Yeah. And then like the program admin, it's pretty much level between each of the different goal areas, but you know, the true reflection of work effort for each goal may vary slightly more than what I'm reflecting. But yeah, just know in-house projects are being considered as well as the grant funded projects. And again, it's always kind of shifting. This is my best big picture for you guys and what we're anticipating. But of course, everything changes and we have to pivot to adjust for it.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions? Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. John, what do you need from us?
Well, we wanted to obviously offer the opportunity for you to make any additional comments, provide any other input, and certainly share any ideas you have for things maybe that we're missing that you think should be priorities for our work plan. I would preface, or I guess I would qualify that by saying we're already doing quite a lot. I hope you can see that, and we certainly feel like the plates are pretty close to full for the coming year. But we also, as a team, recognize that we may have blind spots. We may be just overlooking things that need to be incorporated, and we would welcome any thoughts that you as a committee have on the work that's being done or work could be done.
Monica or Bianca, you have any comments?
I just want to say thank you all so much for all of the work that you do. This hard work does not go unnoticed. I know this takes a lot of time, dedication. So no, really, I'm not going to add more work. Just wanted to say thanks.
Monica?
No, I think, you know, that we're doing really well.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the
So-
work that you guys do too. It's a lot of volunteer
Yeah.
time that you guys spend with us, so we appreciate it. We
Well,
can't do our work without you guys.
Well, you're fun to work with, so that makes it easier.
Agreed. We have the easy job.
Yeah.
Well, we do need to ask, you know, are you comfortable with the plan that is outlined that Marcy presented in terms of you know, cleaning that up and making it ready for submission to ACL? Or would you like to meet again in a couple of weeks prior to the council meeting to review it again, make any further refinements? What's your pleasure, really?
Or even after council meeting, since it still be a draft, we can meet after
Mhm.
and this will give you time to think about the different areas that you think the language can be strengthened or a new activity added. So, we have to submit this by August. So, we're gonna clean this up for the council meeting in June, and then we're still gonna be working at it and tweaking it. So there's still time to meet again, Kathy, prior to August, if you want to do that.
Do we need council's approval on it before you submit it?
We do. But I
Yeah.
think if you make any significant changes after they do, we're gonna need their approval. So, and they're
Okay.
not meeting till September, I believe, September, yeah. But if you
Yeah,
want
but
to review any of the final revisions of, hey, we just changed this language to reflect this more accurately, and you want to review it, that we could have that meeting.
I think
Yeah,
that would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay, our proposal, our suggested motion for the council would be to approve the draft as presented, with the understanding that slight changes may need to be made. Nothing substantive really, but slight alterations may need to be made prior to submission. We would definitely want this committee input on any changes that are made. So if you're of a mind that you would be willing to meet again in July or early August, personally, I think that would be excellent. That would be really, really helpful prior to us submitting the final version.
Yeah. I'm good with that. Bianca and Monica?
Yeah, I'm good with it too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was thinking, if there's any substantial changes or anything like that, minor wording, I wouldn't be too concerned about. But if it is helpful, to you guys that we meet again just one last time, sure.
Yeah. To just see the final version. Yeah. Would that
Yeah.
mean
And
that by then, like Jason would know where maybe the transportation grant, would that kind of information be added to the work plan or?
Yeah, if it's significant information that's going to inform the direction we as staff take on any of our activities, absolutely we can build that in. And if we do, there's certainly no reason we can't make substantive changes. We just will need to go back and ask the executive committee to approve those changes on behalf of the board prior to us submitting. And we can, if it comes to it, we can schedule a special meeting of the executive committee to do just that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, why don't we, if Monica and Bianca are good with it, we meet sometime in July or early August just to review what you finalize.
I think so.
Sure. And I'm so sorry. I have another meeting right now, so I have to step out.
Thank
But
you, Bianca.
thank you guys so much. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bianca,
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay.
So Kathy, would you like to schedule that meeting now, or would you prefer that I send out a doodle poll to people and find out what the best date is?
We know that Fridays are good, right? Could we schedule
Right.
it now? And then are you thinking like the 26th of July or the 2nd of August?
I was thinking the 2nd of August. The 26th of July is pretty.
Okay.
Would that work?
Monica, are you okay with August 2nd? It's 9
I
o'clock?
am.
Okay.
Yes.
Could we do that? And John, if you just send it to Bianca and see if she's okay with that.
Yeah. Now, I guess I should ask the team, is there anything else going on that day that I'm overlooking?
I don't say anything on August 2nd. The week before is NACDD conference in DC.
Yeah, that's it.
No.
Say, when is that?
The
Yeah, that's the
NACD?
week.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the week of the 22nd.
yeah.
Yeah, the second's, I'm clear.
Good.
Anybody else have a
Yeah.
conflict on the 2nd? Hearing none. All right. August 2nd at 9 a.m. we will schedule our follow-up meeting.
Great.
Okay. Kathy or Monica, any other thoughts? Anything else you want us to consider?
Yeah, I can't think of anything right now.
Staff members, anything else you want to share? Anything we didn't mention that you think is important to share? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Kathy and Monica, for all of your insights, for all your support. We appreciate it. It really, really helps us. And as always, my thanks to everybody on the staff who performed such incredible work.
Thank you, guys. You make it easy.
All right.
All right. You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Monica,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Go to
Bye.
agenda.
Thank, bye.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.